Good evening, everyone. Good evening to our YouTube audience. Good evening to everybody on Facebook and online. My name is Reverend Tisha Dixon-Williams. I am the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton. I'm also the chief operator and curator of a women's ministry movement called Who's That Lady? And I'm also the author of I See You, Sis, Inspirations of Heroic Women in the Bible Hidden in Plain Sight. I am so excited to be here tonight to lead you in this moment of, I just need a minute. Is there anybody that just needs a minute? I want you to just wave your hands wherever you are. Hey guys, and just say, whew, I just need a minute. I want to thank Pastor Kristian and the entire TFC family for this humbling and amazing opportunity. And so to all of you, or to anyone who had a part in me being here tonight, I say thank you. So you just need a minute. So for this minute that we have together, I want to take you to the book of Revelation. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, we don't like the book of Revelation, do we? But that's where we're hanging our hat tonight. So if you would, come with me to the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. The book of Revelation, chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. I'll be reading the New Living Translation, but you can certainly read from whatever translation you have. I, John, am your brother and your partner in suffering and in God's kingdom and in the patient endurance to which God calls us. I was exiled to the island of Patmos for preaching the word of God and for my testimony about Jesus. It was the Lord's day, and I was worshiping in the Spirit. Suddenly, I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet blast. It said, "Write in a book everything you see, and send it to the 7 churches in the cities of Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea." I was exiled to the island of Patmos for preaching the word of God and for my testimony about Jesus. Tonight, for the few moments that we have to share, I'd like to hang my hat and preach a little bit on this thought. What's a nice kid like you doing in a place like this? Lord, use us in this setting. In February of 2020, ABC premiered a new legal drama titled For Life, executive produced by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. And the series centers on Aaron Wallace, who, while incarcerated, becomes a lawyer and acts as a defense attorney for his fellow inmates, all while working to prove his own innocence. In one particular episode, Wallace provides legal representation for an inmate named Easley, a man who, much like Wallace, is wrongly convicted and has been incarcerated for decades. A conviction that was vacated after Wallace proved his innocence based on DNA evidence. On the day of his release, Easley shares these words with Wallace. No matter what happens in your own trial, you have something of importance to do while you're here. I never found that. I never did anything with my time. What you did for me, you can do for others. Make a difference no matter where you are. And while I know this series For Life is loosely based on the life of attorney Isaac Wright, a man wrongfully convicted of being a drug kingpin and sentenced to life in prison plus 70 years, I also find that it can more accurately be based on the life of John, the loyal, loved, lethargic legal guardian, Last Supper, long-suffering, lauded, and now lone apostle while exiled in prison on Patmos. Interestingly, I also cannot help but to notice how this legal drama set between the courtroom and the penitentiary premiered in February 2020, just as our real life drama set between COVID-19 and the pandemic would unfold. Truly, as we approach right now the 1-year mark of this pandemic and over 500,000 deaths, we share in Aaron Wallace's condemnation as we contemplate being convicted by coronavirus for life. The question is, will you make a difference no matter where you are? Can you make a difference even in a place like this? Oh, I don't know what your Patmos is. I'm not in your business tonight. I don't know what your Patmos is. I don't know if it's this pandemic or systemic, prison or derision, affliction or addiction, hardship or a complicated courtship, illness or stillness, financial delinquency or career complacency. I don't know, TFC, what your Patmos is. But what I do know is there's a plan for it. How do I know? Well, John tells us so. He said it was the Lord's day, and I was worshiping in the spirit when suddenly I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet blast. It said, write in a book everything you see and send it to the 7 churches. Please don't miss this. While John was in prayer, the plan for his Patmos experience was revealed. I said something there. Oftentimes, your presence in a place speaks volumes, which must indicate that God has a plan. Otherwise, it would make no sense for you to be in that place. It would make no sense for a nice kid like you to be in a place like this on Patmos. John receives a vision, more than a vision, it was a plan. See, vision is the act or power of seeing, whereas a plan is a detailed proposal for doing or achieving something. But unfortunately, most of us stop at the vision. Oh, yeah. You put it on a board willfully, but over time, what you wished for and failed to work for just becomes wallpaper. We're in court today. You can go ahead and plead guilty. However, on Patmos, John received a wondrous panorama of the perfect plan, right in a book. Everything you see and send it to the 7 churches. I want you to know today that your placement on Patmos is not without purpose. One more time, I want you to know today that your placement on Patmos is not without purpose. There is a greater plan at play here. Have you ever considered the plan that God has for you in your Patmos place? Oh, in other words, I think some of y'all need to pray for a revelation. Let me say it this way. Think some of y'all need to approach the bench. Yeah, you know what the bench is. The bench is that large raised desk in front of the courtroom behind which the judge sits. When a lawyer asks to approach the bench, he or she is taking the judge's permission to literally step closer to the desk to speak with the judge outside of the hearing of the jury. These discussions are purposefully held outside of the jury's hearing to avoid confusing the issues or influencing the jurors. What are you saying, Tish? I'm saying stop playing to the jury and step a little closer to the judge. Some of you need to approach God more intimately in this season outside of the hearing or influences of others so that you might better hear the plan that God has for you in Patmos, the plan that God has for your life. And as painful as it is, sometimes that can only happen in a Patmos place. John was sent to Patmos not to preach, to plant, or I dare say, not even punishment. Because when we look at the greater providential picture, this was not a punishment because he was sent to produce. And I can hear some of you saying right now, why would he have to go to Patmos? Why couldn't he produce in Jerusalem? Why couldn't he hole up at home and receive the revelation? Why did he have to go to prison to be productive? Great question. You see, it was a matter of protection. Let me remind you that persecution led John to Patmos. He was exiled to the island of Patmos for preaching the word of God, for his testimony about Jesus. The Christian church was facing severe persecution. Believers were suffering socially, politically, and economically. Because of this worldwide persecution, some were even being killed for their faith. And John was exiled to Patmos because he refused to stop preaching the gospel. I wish I had somebody out there that says, come what may, I refuse to stop preaching the gospel. And with Christian persecution rampant, turns out Patmos might have been the safest place for him. Keep in mind that Patmos was a sterile place with limited distractions, void of the violence taking place at the vanguard of major cities. Perhaps quarantine is the safest place for you. Certainly at the onset of this pandemic, before we were encouraged to wash our hands and wear our masks and stay 6 feet apart, we were ordered to stay home. Home is and was the safest place for us, providing our greatest opportunity to remain sterile and void of the virus. And with nowhere to go and limited distractions, it provides many of us a unique opportunity to understand our purpose. And when you understand the purpose, you can endure the process. One more time. Understand the purpose, you can endure the process. The question is, what do you see? The tribulation or the revelation? Oh, you may not be free from Patmos, but you can be free in it. In other words, this thing is bigger than you. Much like quarantine is not solely for your purposes, but for the protection of others, the plan God has for you is not solely for your purpose, but for the perseverance and prosperity of others. The plan revealed to John on Patmos served as a promise for everyone else. John writes of the future. The entire future of the seven churches rested upon John's revelation. Oh my goodness. Can we be honest tonight? We love to declare that everything attached to me wins. Don't we love to sing that song? It's my winning season. Everything attached to me wins. But have you ever considered what's operating at a loss because it's attached to you? We learn here. The plan is bigger than you for a purpose greater than you. Here's the plan. Write in a book everything you see. Here's the purpose, and send it to the seven churches. And what he wrote to encourage the Christians of his day applies to us today, proving one thing: God still has a plan for the church in a place like this, and God still has a plan for you in a place like this. Come on, y'all got to shout. We're going to get some order in the court. God has a plan for your mind in a place like this. God has a plan for your body in a place like this. God has a plan for your heart in a place like this. God has a plan for your wallet in a place like this. God has a plan for your children in a place like this. Let me encourage a couple. God has a plan for your marriage in a place like this. God has a plan for your future in a place like this. How do I know? Because the plan outlasted the man. John has long since passed, and yet we still read this book, reveling in the revelation that good will triumph over evil. We still read this book, reveling in the reassurance of an eternal hope, and we still read this book, reveling in the future realization of Christ's return. The plan will outlast the man. There's a plan for your Patmos experience. Come here, Drake. Yeah, I know they wishing and wishing and wishing and wishing on you, but God's plan contains a present reality and a future promise. I said God's plan contains a present reality and a future promise. And it all happens on Patmos. I know Patmos is painful. I know it's hard. I know you feel defeated, but you can't give up on the plan, and you can't give up on your purpose. If John had given up, the churches would die. Someone's life depends on your plan, much like the inmates depended on Aaron Wallace for legal representation. Someone is depending on your living representation, whose future depends on you. Someone will be delivered because of you. Someone will be inspired because of you. Someone will be freed from bondage because of you. Someone will be healed because of you. Someone will practice greatest commandment theology because of you. Make no mistake, my brothers and sisters, the plan that you have been called to execute isn't light work, it's legacy work. What you do right now has the power to echo throughout eternity. Family, what you're doing in a place like this is not as important as what you've been called to do in a place like this. So what's a nice kid like you doing in a place like this? Somebody say, I'm executing the plan in a place like this. The voice told John, write in a book everything you see and send it to the seven churches. That was John's plan. What's your plan? What's the voice telling you tonight? Here's my closing argument. I say to you, write everything you hear in a music composition book and record that song. Write everything you spend in a ledger book and take control of your financial future. Write everything you envisioned in a business plan and make your dream a reality. Write everything you eat in a food journal and live a healthier life. Write everything you feel in a diary and begin the journey toward healing. Write everything you know in the family Bible and encourage future generations. Write everything you learned in a course of study and go ahead and teach that class. Write everything you've experienced in an op-ed and speak truth to power. Write everything you've studied, prepare it in a sermon and preach with power. What is the voice telling you? There's a plan for your Patmos. And today, since we are in court, I'd like to lay some charges before you, and I hope each and every one of you can plead guilty. I'm so tired of lazy Christians. I want y'all not to be innocent, but to be guilty tonight. So I charge you tonight. I charge you with premeditated murder for successfully executing the plan God assigned you with. I charge you tonight with manslaughter because you don't even know you about to kill this thing. I charge you tonight with possession of the knowledge that greater is the God that is in you than he that is in the world. I charge y'all tonight with theft for taking back everything that the enemy stole. I charge you with trespassing for walking boldly into your destiny. I charge you tonight with indecent exposure because, baby, they ain't seen nothing yet. I charge you, Kristian, with aiding and abetting for achieving success and bringing some folks with you along the way. Can you plead guilty tonight? I wish I had some people that would type in the comments, guilty as charged. I rest my case. What's a nice kid like you doing in a place like this? I needed a minute. Good night.